Hi everyone, it's JJ here and welcome to Be Colorful. Finally, I'm going to use the Tonic Craft Kit number 33, White Wonderland. Oh yes, Christmas card in summertime. A little out of place, but in the world of card making, we start creating Christmas card in July. Let's take a quick look at what the kit contains. First of all, we have a set of paper in a typical winter colors from grey and silver to light blue and blues. We get various types of paper as usual. For example, we find this fantastic embossed silver paper or even this gorgeous handmade cotton paper. We also get a 6x6 pattern paper pad in a different blue shading colors. Here we have the dies. This kit includes a frame set with an intricate design. We can create various layers, even of different thickness, as I will show you shortly. The focal point of this set are these dies that resemble art glass mosaic windows. We get three different designs, one with two bells, one with two Christmas baubles, and another one with a Christmas tree. As you can see, this die cut out only the outlines of the image. To be able to cut out the whole figure, you will have to use these matching dies. The same goes for the frames. This month, the kit also includes a stencil with a design similar to the dies, a beautiful mosaic glass with poinsettias. Finally, we have the stamp set with two perfect sentiments for Christmas card and other stamps that represent typical Christmas elements such as a pine cone and a holly. I'd like to remind you that dies, stamps and stencil are exclusive of the kit, therefore they cannot be purchased separately. Everything else can be easily purchased online. Let's move on to the Nuvo product. This month we find a mini embellishment mousse and a mini expanding mousse with a really beautiful pearlescent blue shading. A mini sparkle spray in a gorgeous deep turquoise color with a very thin silver mica inside. A bottle in a standard size of ice blue gel drop, which, unlike a normal crystal drop, once dry, will have a transparent glossy finish. Then we find one pot of Sub-Zero Sequins and one pot of Iridescent Ice Stars Confetti, or two pots of glitter. It is totally random. I have received the first two, for example, but in the shops you will find them in a set containing all of them. Finally, we get two blending sponges, useful for spreading the mousses included in the kit, or in general, inks or liquid paint. I quickly show you a little test of this product. Starting from the left, we have the sequins, the confetti, a few drops of gel drop, the really shiny sparkle spray, the embellishment mousse, the expanding mousse, which here I have heated with a heat tool to have this sponge effect. And here I didn't, and as you can see, it worked like a normal embellishment mousse. Well, now let's start making the card. For the first card, I show you a project using the dies as they are being designed, that is creating various layers of frames and with different thicknesses. I will use the larger rectangle die to create my card base in order to get a perfect card size for the rest of the dies. On white cardstock, I'm going to create a fold line with my scoreboard and position the die leaving its left side out of the card so as not to die cut the side that hold the two pages together. I will use the larger frame directly on the card base, so I will create a gorgeous decorative carvings that will show the inside of the card. Being a very intricate die, to obtain a perfect cut, I am using the C6 Precision plate. For the second frame, I will create a separate element using 3 dies, the one that creates the decorative curvings, the rectangle one that cut out the external figure, and the arched one that cut out the inside. I'm going to well align these 3 dies, and I put some glue stick tape to make sure that they stay in place, because I will die cut this frame 3 times and I want them to be identical. I will create 2 on white cardstock and 1 on a silver mirror cardstock with a satin finish. Not included in the kit, but of course you can use the embossed paper from the kit. Now I have all the 3 frames ready to go, I need to remove all the small pieces in excess. The reason why I created 3 frames is to give thickness to the element. Therefore, I glue them one on top of the other, making sure to align them perfectly. I'm going to glue the silver frame at the very top. As you can see, I created a homemade chipboard frame. Now I will die cut the third frame directly. I will die cut the third decorative frame directly onto the card base and position it using the silver frame as a guide. Let's move on to the focal point, where I will create a mosaic glass window using the Christmas tree die and its matching edge die. This element will be very thickness. In fact, I will die cut the figure 4 times. First of all, I will align the dies and I will always keep them together using the glow stick tape to obtain 4 identical figures, otherwise they will not fit together. I die cut 2 times on foam sheets. I'm going to cut out a window on white cardstock and the upper window on the dark turquoise mirror card included in the kit. For the background of the window, I will die cut the shape with the matching die on pearlescent light blue cardstock, always included in the kit. Now I can glue all the layers one on top of the other with liquid glue, which gives me enough time to align the various layers as well as possible. I'm going to stick my element on the card base. But before to glue the final layer, I will fill all the spaces of the mosaic glass with the Nuvo crystal glaze, which will create a beautiful shiny glass effect, perfect for this window. Any type of glossy accent is fine for this technique, or you can use the Nuvo drop from the kit, as it will become transparent gloss when dry. Or again, you can previously carry out the hot embossing technique on the base of the window using a clear ink and a clear embossing powder and repeating the procedure several times in order to obtain a smoother effect. Once all the spaces are filled, I can glue the final layer of the window, as well as the silver frame. I'm going to add some finishing touches with the gel drop, filling the squares at the corner of the silver frame and creating the holly berries on external white frame. As a sentiment, I will use the Merry and Bright stamp included in the kit, which I will print on white cardstock with a clear embossing ink. First of all, I prepare my surface with anti-static powder to ensure that the embossing powder remains attached only to the stamp. Now I'm going to sprinkle my stamp with a silver embossing powder and I melt it with the heat gun. I'm going to cut out the strip. If you have seen my other videos, you may have noticed that I like to finish my panels by creating edges. Therefore, I'm going to glue my sentiment strip on the silver paper which I used before to make the frame. And then I'm going to cut it out, leaving a very thin border all around the element. Finally, I'm going to stick the element below the window using some foam pad. And my first card is done. For my second card I will again exploit the design of the dice that resembles a mosaic glass. After die cut one of the window die on white cardstock, I try to hold all the small pieces in place. To keep them still you can use some low stick tape. Now I'm going to color the mosaic glass using my alcohol markers. Of course you can use any type of colors you prefer. I'm not going for any crazy color technique. I just color my tree in green and notice that I don't worry about getting out of the border because as you will see they will be completely covered up. Obviously, I'm careful not to color other elements of the design, such as the bubbles, as I want them to be of another color. I'm going to color the star and some bubbles with a silver marker, but then I will change my mind and I will use a Nuvo glitter marker. As you can see here, for some bubbles I decided to use a blue glitter marker. And I'm going to cover up the silver element with my silver glitter marker. Finally, I'm going to color the background pieces with a pale blue ice alcohol marker. As you can notice, I didn't separate the dies because I have planned to die cut my window several times and I need the same window all the times. So I'm going to cut it out on white cardstock to get a perfect outlines that will cover those of the colored image. I'm going to put some tape adhesive on a piece of white cardstock and stick my color window. I'm going to reattach any pieces that have come out. And I proceed to stick the edges over the color image. I get a clean image without smudges. To give a nice dimension, I will die cut the window a second time on white cardstock. Note that the dies are still in the same position. I'm going to stick the second layer on top of the other. And I cut out the whole window following the outlines. Let's move on to the card base. For this project I will need two card bases, a standard card that is 4¼ by 5½, and a smaller one that I will insert inside. You can see all the measures on the top left corner of the video. So now I start working on the front of my card. I will die cut the windows 3 times on white cardstock and 1 on the iridescent cardstock included in the kit. I'm going to cut out a rectangle background panel using the grey classic card included in the kit. I now proceed to create the opening that will allow to see the color windows inside the card. I temporarily fix the grey panel on the front of the card base, and I'm going to position the die that cut out the edges of the windows, as well as, of course, the whole figure if it is not used with the intricate dies. I will die cut all together both the grey panel and the front part of the card base, so as to have an opening that perfectly matches both panels. I'm going to stick the smaller card inside the main card base with double-sided tape. I'm going to glue the color window on the front of the internal card, exactly in the opening created on the external card. On the back of the grey panel, I'm gonna glue a piece of acetate sheet. And I'm going to stick on the acetate all the layers that I have previously die cut. The 3 layers in white cardstock, which will give thickness to the window, and at the top the layer in iridescent paper. I'm gonna glue the grey panel on the front of my card base, making sure to match the window openings. Also for this card I will create a glossy effect with a glossy accent, filling the spaces of the mosaic glass. This time I add some glitter to give a touch of shiny. After filling all the spaces, I'm gonna clean up the paper from the glossy accent. And I sprinkle another bit of glitter over the glossy accent Don't worry, because the glossy accent is a kind of glue, so the glitter will stay in place on the surface once the liquid has dried. As a sentiment, I will use Happy Holiday from the set included in the kit. I will stamp it on a strip of white cardstock using the clear Versamark ink, as once again I will carry out the hot embossing technique, always with the silver powder. I'm going to cut out the strip at the top and at the bottom edges, and with a pencil I'm going to mark where to make the cut on the right and the left side in order to have a 4¼ banner like the card base, keeping, however, the writing centered. I finish the strip by creating two very thin edges on the top and the bottom using the blue holographic paper. I'm gonna stick down my sentiment using some foam tape. I chop off the excesses and I'm going to add the finishing touches of the card, gluing some sequins included in the kit in a random but visually balanced way. I also add some sequins to the internal card, creating a kind of snowflakes effect. And I can say that my second card is ready. It is an elaborate card, and I really like the external glass effect that allows to see the colored internal window. What do you say? Do you like this effect? The reason why I created an internal card is simply to have a free surface on which I can write my personal message. The third card is quicker and easier than the last cards. I'm going to prepare my card base on white cardstock in a standard size, that's 4¼ by 5½. Then I'm gonna create my main panel using one of the cards of the pattern paper pad included in the kit. I'm going to cut out the panel to be 4¼ by 5½. Now I'm going to cut out this panel diagonally so as to create a central opening, as you can see from the image. I cut out the panel in order to obtain two panels, one slightly longer than the other. Now, positioning the two panels in this way, I slide the longer one and form a central banner of about 1.5 inches. I will stick my panels directly on the card base using foam tape to give a nice dimension, leaving the central part hollowed out. I'm going to cover up a large area with foam tape because this paper is very thin and I want to make sure that all is nice and even without any gap. I finish the diagonal edges of the panels by sticking a very thin strip of the silver specialty card included in the kit. As a sentiment, I'm going to stamp Happy Holiday at the center of the card. To be sure to stamp the sentiment parallel to the diagonal of the panels, I'm gonna use my stamping platform, which allows me to position the stamp before stamping and then make the stamp in that exact position. I use the clear ink because I'm gonna make the embossing technique again with the silver embossing powder. This time I forgot to put the anti-static dust on the paper, so some grains of powder also stuck where they didn't have to. Never mind, we can remove them with a very thin tip brush. Now I can glue the two panels on my card base. And the card is pretty much finished. I'm adding just a few drops of gel drops as a finishing touches. And I can call this card done. Quick and easy to mass produce, for which it is possible to create variations using the other card of the paper pad included in the kit. For the card number 4, I will take advantage of the double-sided printing of the paper pad included in the kit. I have already made my standard card at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 on white cardstock. I'm going to cut the main panel so that will be slightly smaller than the standard card. With my scissors, I make a cut in the center of the panel. Then I fold the two edges of paper in this way. Now I'm gonna create my own decorative element using a stamp from the kit. To do that, I will stamp on a square of white cardstock of about 1 1/2 inch by 1 1/2 inch using the black VersaFine ink. I will finish my decorative element by creating very thin borders all around the little square with the dark turquoise mirror paper included in the kit. I'm gluing the white square on the mirror card using some foam pad and a little bit of liquid glue. With the scissors I'm gonna cut out the excesses so as to have just a thin frame all around the element. Before sticking everything down, I'm gonna stamp the sentiment in the center of the opening obtained by folding the pattern paper. I stamp the sentiment with the black VersaFine ink that I used for the other stamp. Now I can stick everything down using the liquid glue. And let's move on to the finishing touches, for which I decided to glue two very thin strips of the mirror card to fill up the bottom part of the card, which seems too empty for me. I'm gonna chop off the excesses, and you can stop here, but I'd like to add a little snow. And the fourth card is finished. For the fifth and the last card of this video, I will use the larger frame of the kit to create a decorative strip. First, I prepare my standard card, that's 4¼ by 5½ on white cardstock. After that, I'm gonna cut out again on white cardstock a strip of about 13/16 of an inch. Actually, I will cut out 3 strips of paper because I'll create 3 decorative strips, but I will use only one. So I position the strips on the longer side of the frame and proceed to die cut them. After removing all the small pieces in excess, I'm gonna create the background for my strip, so using the specialty cotton paper included in the kit. Being a particular paper, in the past I had problems cutting it with paper trimmers, so I prefer to cut it out with my scissors. So I mark the lines to make a straight cut, and I will cut 3 strips which will have the same size as the decorated strips. I'm going to stick the white strip on top of the background. To add interest on my background, I will use this die included in the kit, which follows the shape of the windows of the other dies, but I will use it to make a background. I will die cut it 6 times, creating a beautiful effect that will be similar of a series of round arches on 2 columns. I will alternate the arches die cutting on 2 levels. Therefore, I am going to position the die a little lower than the previous position, however making sure that the bottom edge of the dies remains covered by the strip that I will glue later on. I'm going to reposition the die on the line of the first arch, proceeding to the right and covering the whole central part of the card. I can't die cut in this way because my big shot is not wide enough, so I simply cut out the card base and I get a panel. So now I'm able to die cut this panel. I positioned the die for the last time on the left side because given the distance between the other arches, this point seems for me visually unbalanced. To add more interest to my background without exaggerating, I'm gonna make some splashes using the embellishment mousse included in the kit, diluted with water. I'm going to cut out the panel so that it is slightly smaller than the standard card, and as usual I will be able to create a finishing frame all around. I will make my own frame by coloring a panel that's 4¼ by 5½ with the mousse included in the kit. To apply the mousse I'm using one of the sponges included in the kit. Now I'm going to glue the decorative strip. and I'm going to finish its borders with two very thin strips of the silver embossed paper included in the kit. As a sentiment, I will do the stencil technique using the stencil included in the kit and the mousse that I used both for the frame and to make the splashing in the background. In order not to do damage, I cover the part of the stencil that I don't need with some post-it. The time has come to reveal the result. I love this moment. Once the mousse has dried, I can glue the various panels. For the background panel, I use both liquid glue and double-sided tape because the mousse has wetted the paper, which has curved. Using the double-sided adhesive, I will ensure that a large part of surface can adhere well to the other panel. Finally, I'm going to stick everything on my card base and the card is finished. Well, the first part of the video ends here. Another 5 cards await us with this kit, and we already have 5 cards ready for Christmas, and we are only at the beginning of August. If you liked the video, leave me a nice thumbs up ice cream, so let's stay in the winter theme, but at least the ice cream will make us fresh during these summer days. Write me in the comments if you too have started some Christmas project and if some technique that I have shown you today has inspired you. Thanks for watching, see you next time and be colorful!